Hey, good evening. I'm making blueberry muffins. And I'm pretty sure I have everything I need for them. I was also gonna make chocolate chip muffins, but I don't have everything I need for those. So let me get some things. Okay, all the things are assembled. If you hear the whooshing in the back, that is a bottle sterilizer for a baby. It looks messy right now, but it'll get better. We'll put things away as we go. So, we're going to start with the dry in the bowl, because the recipe says to whisk it together so that there's not lumps. I'm going to try and stick to the recipe this time. Not always, but this time we are. So, I'm actually doubling the recipe. So it's going to be 3 cups of flour, all-purpose. It says spooned and leveled, but really I'm just going to scoop into my flour bin and tap it until it's level. So maybe that's not per the recipe already, but whatever. See? 2. 3. I'm not going to use this again, so it can go in the sink. It'll be 1.5 cups of sugar, and technically sugar is a wet ingredient, but we're just gonna go with it. So this is a 1.5 cup measuring cup. Spilled a little bit, that's okay. And then we're not going to use this again, so this can go. This can go. And then 4 teaspoons of baking powder. They say in the recipe they prefer aluminum free, but I'm pretty sure this one is anyway. No, it's not. It's sodium aluminum sulfate. But it's a gluten-free one. I've always used this one. So hopefully that won't mess things up. I think it has to do with the reaction of leavening agents and blueberries. But to my knowledge, it's usually only with baking soda, not baking powder. It's 2, 3, and 4. There goes that. And then it says 1/2 teaspoon of fine sea salt. But this is a kosher salt house. I'm gonna do like a little shy of 1/2 teaspoon. Just because it's a little more concentrated. Alright, so those are our dry ingredients. We're going to whisk them together and get the lumps out of the flour and any lumps that might be in your baking powder, I guess, if it's a little bit older. We'll leave kind of a well in the middle. It's hard to see, but and then we'll get our wet ingredients. This one, this measuring cup does not have third cups, but we're just gonna work with it because in their instructions and the recipe they say to do the oil and the egg and then the milk up to the 1 cup line, which is about 1/3 of a cup. So we're gonna trust them on that. If you have a more exact measuring cup, probably use that. But this is what I'm using. We're going with our gut. So that's 2/3 cup of oil. Usually I would replace it with applesauce, but I don't have any applesauce right now. So we're rolling with it. Have our eggs. If you have any doubt about how old your eggs are, crack them into something else first. So that way if you have a bad egg, you don't waste your oil. So now we're at a little over 1 cup with the oil and eggs for a double batch. So another 2/3 a cup of milk would be, put us right about 1 3/4. No, more like just over the 1.5 line. We can always add a little more. We can always add a little more milk if it's too doughy. Or a little more flour if it's too wet. Vanilla for a double batch would be a tablespoon, but if you know, you know, a tablespoon is 3 teaspoons. And we already have the teaspoon out, so 1, 2, 3, and a little more for good measure. So we're gonna whisk the wet in here first and then combine it to the dry. All right, and then we're gonna ditch the whisk. We're gonna use a Rubbermaid. This one is hard plastic, so it'll be good for our initial stirring. And then this one is like a semi-stiff rubber one, which will be better for making sure we don't have flour pockets and for folding in the blueberries. So ultimately I think I'm just gonna use this one to save on dishes. This one another time. All right, here we go. Oh my mercy. What's wrong with me? I'm baking too late, but it's nice and quiet. And if you want, you can also add lemon zest to anything you have blueberries in, because that is a divine combo, if you ask me. Especially if you do add lemon zest, rub it into your sugar first, like before adding it to your dry. I'm just gonna go ham on all that. Maybe not the most technical approach, but we're being realistic. The recipe says we should expect it to be doughy, but not crazy firm. So something we can scoop, which is great, because I love using drop scoops. Makes my life much, much easier. So you don't want to over mix, because that'll ruin the texture of your muffins. So this is kind of where we're at just after a little bit of mixing. Make sure, checking for dry spots. Nobody wants a poof of baking powder in their muffin. Okay, so kind of like a sticky, scoopable dough where we're at right now. And then blueberries for a single batch is 6 to 8 ounces. This is a pint. I'm going to just hope and live on a prayer that there's no stems still attached to them, because I don't really want to pick through all of them to find out. So, oh, that one's bad. Yucky. That one's bad. Oh, that one's bad. Obviously, I'm picking out any bad ones, though. We'll give them to our pig. The ideal would have been to make the muffins when the blueberries were a little fresher, but that's just life sometimes. Nobody's gonna know. Oh, that one has a stem. Okay, I'm good on the rest. If you have recycling in your state or wherever you live, go ahead and recycle these. Unfortunately, where I live, there is no recycling. So yeah, it'll go in the trash eventually, but I'll try and upcycle it as like a seed starter or something. Alright, so then we're going to gently fold the blueberries in so that we don't bust all of their bubbles. Or burst all of their bubbles, I guess you could say. They kind of look like little bobas. Nature's boba. Alright. So that's where we're at. Obviously, I should have said at the beginning to preheat your oven to 400. My oven is going to be a little bit loud because it is old and not super efficient, so I waited to preheat. So I am going to pop this in the fridge until my oven is preheated, and then I will be scooping and all of that stuff, but I will likely do voiceover during that part because of both the sterilizer and then the oven is considerably noisy as far as background noise is concerned. So I'm gonna put this in the fridge for a little bit, preheat my oven, and then we'll be back. Okay, we're back. So the oven is preheated and we have liners, we have our scoop, and then we have, these are technically coarse sugar sprinkles, but it says in the recipe to sprinkle a little bit of sugar on each one before you bake them. But I'm gonna use these because frankly I don't know when they'll be used otherwise. So look how cute. The recipe says that one batch would make 10 muffins, so 2 batches should make about 20, which means I'll have to use this pan twice. And then it says to spray over the top so that the overage of the muffins don't stick to the pan. But I also think it's kind of a fail-safe so that they don't stick to the liners, because I have bad luck with that. But do this over the sink, kind of like that, if you can tell. Alright, so the dough has been in the fridge. It is a little more stiff now after being refrigerated, but that just means we're going to need a minute or two more for baking. So I can't fill it up that much. It's a 2-ounce drop scoop, I believe, which would equate to a 1/4 cup. So you definitely just use a measuring cup and like your finger or a small spatula to get it out, but these are like spring loaded, so it makes it super easy to get it out of the scoop. Also, if you're big on making cookies, a set of drop scoops will change your life, genuinely, because I will make batches of cookies and I will pre-scoop all of them, and of course I'll bake some off right away, but then I freeze them in their pre-scooped forms. It only takes like another minute or two when baking them, but then you can very easily just pull out exactly how many you want without having to thaw a whole brick of dough just for like a handful of cookies. Alright, so I'll fast forward for you for when I have this filled up, so you don't have to watch me do all of these. Okay, so I put the rest of the batter aside. I'm gonna leave it out this time because it says to bake these for 15 to 20 minutes. I am hesitant to do it at 400 degrees, but that's what the recipe says. So if you did this with sugar instead of my coarse sugar sprinkles here, you just sprinkle it on top before baking. Give each one a little bit of love, because these will melt in a little bit, but they will hopefully just make kind of a nice crunchy sugary crust on top. Put the rest aside for later. Okay, oven 15 to 20 minutes. We're going to be doing a toothpick test, so when it comes out with no crumbs or no wetness, bam, look at those. Toothpick test, no batter. So I'm gonna let them sit, which, that was hot. Let them sit and cool for a few minutes before I pop them out. And it might have been just because I had it in the fridge prior to baking, but they ended up taking 24 minutes where the recipe says 15 to 20. So those extra 4 minutes might have been because it was chilled, but they have a nice little sugar crust on them. And you can see like the pan spray that was on top is kind of yucky, so I'll wipe that off after I pop them out, so that it'll still be non-stick, even though they didn't really, you know, spread that much. But then it won't continue to burn and then make my oven smell bad. So in a few minutes, leave them like 5 to 10 minutes, because these pans usually cool pretty quickly as far as being able to touch them, but give them a few minutes so that the muffins can kind of keep their shape, and then we'll put them on the cooling rack. Okay, so these are out of the pan now. They are still hot, so we'll wait to put them away until they're totally cooled, but the pan was cool enough to get them out. So now we will do the remaining batter. This is 12, so I should get 8 more, but we will see about that. If you ever are doing a recipe with cupcakes or muffins and it's not going to fill the whole pan, try and fill the middle of your pan first and then go to your edges. And then if you had a lot of residue in the cups, any of the cups that are empty, put a little bit of water in for when you bake. So that way it kind of would match the moisture content and it also won't burn oil into your muffin pan. So we got about this much left. I don't know if that'll make 8 or not, but we will see. Okay, so it ended up only being 4 more, but it could have stretched to 5. It's just that last one would have had like no blueberries in it, and that would have been really sad to get that muffin. So instead I just split up the last little bit of batter between these 4, and then just be a little bit oversized. So the original recipe said 10 for each batch for regular size or normal size, which I would consider these to be. You know, like a normal size pan rather. But it definitely is going to average out to 8 each, but maybe I made them larger than they would have. I didn't really pay much attention to the pictures in the recipe, but I will link the recipe below because I did find it online and I didn't really make any changes, so it is technically not my recipe. I'm just testing it for you, essentially. So sugar are on those. I am going to start them at 20 minutes instead of 16 because they're a little bit overfilled. They're not cold anymore, like the batter's not cold anymore like those ones were, but they are filled more. So we're going to start at 20 and see if it needs any extra time after that. Alright, so these ones ended up taking the same amount of time, 24 minutes. So take the timing with a grain of salt, I guess. But, you know, as you learn to bake or start baking more, you will learn to trust like your intuition on baking times and temperatures and adjustments to make, like how I did with having cooled it. I started at 16 minutes as a baseline instead of 15, and I mean it ended up being 24 minutes for both the chilled ones and oversized. But you'll start to learn how long to give additionally, like an extra 3 or 4 minutes, especially as you get to know your oven as well. But you'll trust your instinct and trust your experience. So these I'm going to again like cool in the pan for a few minutes and then cool in the cooling rack, and then you can wrap them individually or in a Tupperware or something, and you can keep them at room temperature for a couple days, and then after that you can put them in the fridge or the freezer depending on how quickly you think you'll get through them or your household will get through them. We like sweets. I don't really like sweets that much, but my household likes sweets. So these will probably go pretty quickly here. Anyway, again, I will post the recipe down below. And I went on to ramble about how it was late and then I would leave a review of them. I will say they were light and fluffy and moist, and they actually were not too sweet. So if you don't have a crazy sweet tooth like I don't, these are going to be right up your alley. The sugar on top was a nice little crunchy sweet part. And that's it. Thank you for watching.